For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for joining me in isolation. I appreciate your time today. Not like you had much else to do today, so I appreciate you giving us a listen. We are in week, I don't even know, of the Corona lockdown, the Corona, the Rona. I've heard so many different names for it. I think, it's becoming, well, it's taken over our lives, obviously, but it's strange that, it's done a complete 180, and essentially now people are being paid to just stay home. It's kind of a cool situation. And of course, I'm not making light. Obviously, lives have been lost. People have been devastated by this whole thing. So it's certainly not, I'm not making a joke of it. But we have to make the most of our time, right? And that's what we're doing here with this podcast every week. 30 minutes of time-wasting fun, as I like to say. And we are going to be talking with Jocko Sims from NBC's New Amsterdam. Now, this is one of these weird moments where life and art cross over, because New Amsterdam has had some storylines with a pandemic, and we'll talk about the final episode of the season. It's not a season finale per se. We'll explain why in just a little bit. But also, the show has a whole bunch of medical equipment, right, and tools and supplies and everything. And Jocko's going to tell us about how they've stepped up, how the team has stepped in to help the New York City relief efforts. It's kind of cool. Now, I should be honest with you. We pre-taped the interview, and it's airing on the radio the day before finale. So if you hear any sort of outdated references of being tomorrow, it's airing Monday on the radio. New Amsterdam is airing Tuesday on NBC in a new time slot, but we'll have all those details coming up in just a little bit. Now, speaking of important dates, earlier this week, I celebrated 15 years of my website called SpeakFreeWithJB.com. Now, I'm guessing some of you have most likely never heard of it. Here's what happened. Back in the day when I was an aspiring newspaper columnist, I couldn't get a job in the industry, and I had to drop out of school because I couldn't afford to pay. I didn't want to have student loans coming out the yin-yang forever. And so I wanted to find work in the industry. And so what I started doing, keep in mind 15 years, this is before social media, blogging, all those kinds of things, was I would write a commentary, a newspaper column of sorts, and blast it to newspapers all over Canada in the hopes of somebody liking my style, right? Liking my approach, liking my opinion, liking my tone, my biting remarks, whatever. And I was able to eventually get some traction on it and land some columns in newspapers across the country. One of them, by the way, I still write for today. It'll be 15 years in September, the Southeast Journal in Emerson, Manitoba, and then a couple other papers in Alberta. And so what I was doing, and again, this is before blogs and all that stuff, I created a website in Microsoft Publisher. There you are. Look that up. Look up Microsoft Publisher if you're not familiar. And basically what I would do is not only would I send these columns to newspapers, I would then also post them on a website. And I called it Speak Free with JB because my initial's JB. And I was speaking free, right? I'm putting out whatever opinions I had. And sometimes, and you've probably seen some of these conservative commentators or whoever who have just this outlandish opinion on something. And you kind of wonder sometimes, like, do you really feel that way? Or are you just trying to be a shit disturber? Like, where are you going? What's your purpose? And sometimes I would just, put something that was the complete opposite of what the mainstream would think, just to get a reaction, right? Because as an editorial columnist in a newspaper, for our younger listeners, you probably have never read a newspaper, but that was the purpose, was to poke at people, to prompt a letter to the editor, to get that discussion going. And so what I would do is I would send these out, and then I would post them on the website, and then every column would end with the line, "That's my point, what's yours?" And there was a form to fill out to comment and share your thoughts. You're not going to believe this, and I'm fine with you not believing me. This was before the comment section on websites. I was one of, if not the first, to incorporate that, because back in the day, news was just meant to, that's the news and that's it. It wasn't a discussion point, right? It was just kind of like, that's the facts and that's what it is. There was no room to debate or discuss with the public anyway. And so I would do that. I would put up my opinion, and then I'd say, hey, what do you think? Let me know. And it was so archaic, the setup of web publishing or web design. You fill out the form, it would be emailed to me, and then I would go and manually post it as just another text box beneath that commentary. And I think maybe I kind of got the whole commenting section of websites created. I should have, copyright trademarked that, or, got a patent or whatever on it. But anyway, so now fast forward all these years later, we've had, we have syndicated radio shows. We've got best-selling books. We've got red carpet events under our belt. We've got celebrity friends. We've got a podcast. We've got a clothing line, Happy Bulge swim company that we launched last year. And people wonder, how do all of these relate? Well, there was a spin-off from one project to another, to another, to another, to another. And in a roundabout way, they are all related. So it's kind of strange. Do we have the time for me to get into it? Sure, what the hell. Jocko Sims is standing by the way. But don't worry, we pre-taped that, so I know how long that interview is. So from the Speak Free with JB website, we then had a radio station in Vancouver read the column and then want me to record it for a 90-second sort of segment. This was an internet radio station in Vancouver. Internet radio was just starting at the time. And I said, well, sure, what the hell? And then I hit it off with the team there, and eventually they asked me to co-host some of their talk shows with them. And I said, I don't know, you guys. I'm wanting to be a newspaper reporter. That's my dream, is I want to be a journalist. Until I can get the credentials to become an actual full-time reporter, I'm going to be a commentator. I'm going to be a columnist. And so I finally reluctantly gave in. I said, sure, why not? And I co-hosted some shows with them, and then they asked me if I want to host my own show. I said no. I don't want to do that. I'm going to be in the newspapers. And so eventually I was asked again, and I said, fine, I'll do it one time to fill in for somebody. And then I did it. And I was able to, this is again back when chat rooms were a big thing. I knew when I was going to be on, and I just went to a bunch of different chat rooms and started saying to people hey, you guys, do you guys listen to internet radio? Listen to this show that's on right now. It's so good. Pretending. Kind of like they say Trump did. Remember when he used to play his own publicist and would talk about himself as an employee? Or talk about him from an whatever. And so that's what I would do. And I got crazy listenership in the 2-hour program, and they asked me to do it again. And I said, you know what? I kind of like this. Let's do it. Fast forward, 14 years it'll be in a week or so. We celebrate 14 years on the air with Top of the Charts. And, and again, that's what's turned into the celebrity interviews. That's how we have Jocko on this show. And again, I'm smiling right now because it takes me to Hollywood. I'm in Hollywood for a big chunk of the year. And we then also published some books. And I just wrote a book on my own years ago, and it flopped, and it did terribly. And then I thought, wait a second, why don't I cross this over with the radio show, and let's try to get this promotion of it. And it worked. And we have, some best-selling books. And one of them was a gay erotic novel, or an erotic gay novel, however you want to call it. And we found that sales were really hard to get, because in a bookstore, people aren't necessarily going to get that anymore, right? And, it was just tough. Again, going back 8-9 years, yes, social media was around, but that's, people weren't necessarily buying a ton of stuff like that. Porn books, basically, we're talking about. I guess you would start to get that on the internet. Anyway, we wanted something more mainstream, a print book. We didn't want to do digital. And so we published this book, and obviously, there's a certain demographic for that. And that launched into a clothing line last year where we said, okay, we'll go and sell the book at Pride festivals, but we need more than just one product on an 8-foot table. And so we looked into getting t-shirts designed, swimwear, accessories, and we've got a whole product line of like 40 or 50 items that we have on the website, happybulge.com. And then, we were supposed to be at Phoenix Pride to kick off our 1-year anniversary at the beginning of the month. As you know, events have been canceled, so we kind of lost all of that audience that we would have had in Phoenix, Fort Lauderdale, Winnipeg, Toronto. But hopefully later in the year, when all of the festivals are rescheduled, we'll get some great sales for Happy Bulge. And so that's how the radio shows and everything kind of everything snowballs into one another. I have my dogs, and they have lots of fans from the radio show. So we thought, okay, well, let's get some pictures of them, and now there's a line of greeting cards throughout the U.S. With my dogs on them. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how this one, basement commentator, because I was living in my parents' basement doing this when I started 15 years ago. Now I have a house, we've got a studio, and all these things, and it's sort of interesting how it all came from that one website, Speak Free with JB, and life has changed suddenly. The entrepreneur life, and it's been incredible. I get paid to go on vacation now when we do travel programming. So it's crazy how things work out. But this is one of those things where, I wasn't intending this to be a big motivational speech or anything, but certainly, and it sounds cliche or trite, whatever the word would be, is don't give up, because every time I would get a no, that would just push me even harder. We would not have had, I'm not going to name names, but we would not have had half of the celebrity guests on the radio shows if I wasn't a persistent dick. I wouldn't have had most of the red carpet invites, and I know for a fact, not that any of these publicists are listening to the podcast, I'm fairly certain they're not, but I know for a fact that when they would see my name come up, they would just be like, oh shit, what does this guy want again? But they knew that we had an audience. They knew that we had something going, right? So yeah, the persistence pays off. It really does. And like I said, fast forward, 14 years later with the radio shows, we're doing okay. And, and even just the star power, I don't think that we've actually announced it yet. We are working on a special coronavirus, just like an entertainment sort of a podcast. I think it's going to be about a 2-hour program. We've taped a bunch of the interviews already. Even just the names that we have on that. Can I name drop right now? I'm going to give a spoiler, and I'm totally going to get in trouble for this. We have Dr. Phil kicking off that show that we've produced. So right there. And let me just take this one step further, because I feel like I'm now defending and really getting having an argument with nobody. Is we had Dr. Phil had agreed, he signed on to do 6 to 8 minutes. 6 to 8 minutes, which is great, because I know he's a busy guy. Now, again, we had taped this just around when the lockdown was kind of starting, so he was very busy. Everybody's hitting him up, wanting his expertise, his insight, his opinion, what have you. We got him, and he stayed for 17 minutes. So that says something about your interview style, your professionalism. Basically, the guest is having a good time. He had to go. He was late already, and he stayed with us because he's a good guy, and he felt that, and actually he said that to me right at the beginning. I don't know that we certainly wouldn't air this, but right at the beginning I said, this is what we'll talk about, and then we'll promo like your shows. And he says, this isn't about me promoting my shows. This is me helping your audience. And I got goosebumps when he said that. That's a true gentleman. That's somebody who's not looking at this going, I'm only doing this to promote my show. It was great. And we had just a kind of a brief chat after we finished recording the segment. He said, great questions. That was fun. I'll talk to you again soon. Now we're best buds. We're not, but I like to say we are. So there you go, everybody. The entrepreneur life. 15 years of speakfreewithjb.com. And you've got plenty of time on your hands right now during this lockdown. So as you're listening, if you can listen and read at the same time, I can't. Check it out, speakfreewithjb.com. We're going to take a break. Jocko Sims from New Amsterdam on NBC, ding ding dong, is next.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day. An entertainment wrap-up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
New Amsterdam wraps up another season on NBC, and Jocko Sims is joining us to talk about the big finale. Hey, Jocko.
Hey, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm surviving, in my little bubble that I have. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good considering.
Right.
Not too bad.
Right. Absolutely. Now, okay. So first off, I have to know: have you been asked to jump in on the coronavirus relief? Like, are you standing by for the local hospitals or anything?
Gosh, I've found myself quite invested emotionally in what has been going on. The cool thing is, from the beginning, New Amsterdam and myself, we've been involved as much as we can. The first thing we did was we got all of our equipment, our masks, and our personal protective equipment and gear that we have on the show, which is the real deal. We took all that gear and we donated to the hospitals here in New York City. And we have some friends that are on the front lines. We have Dr. Jeff, who is one of our advisors on set. He's right there with me side by side in our scenes. He's been working at Bellevue Hospital for 28 years. We have Lisa Ween, who is the head nurse there at Bellevue, and we've been in touch with them daily, hearing about the situation. So that's the first thing. And also, we've been attempting to try to facilitate getting masks from other countries over here to the hospitals because the situation has been quite dire. But it's a daily thing, and it's been interesting and not in a good way to see how that process has been.
Well, absolutely. I mean, so many tragic stories coming out of it, but as you're saying, so many great stories coming out, right? People coming together to help and really build a sense of community. It's really great to see.
Absolutely, and that's cool. In times like this is when people come together, and it's unfortunate that it takes events like this sometimes to bring us together, but such is life, where we need a reminder that we are one people, and we need to rely on each other to move the human race forward.
When you were last on with us, we talked about how you pick up, medical lingo, and you really start to understand what these doctors and healthcare workers go through. So I can imagine now with this whole crisis, this global health crisis, you have a new appreciation for what the doctors are going through, and probably also that you see the patient side, because you've also kind of had these real life experiences that you've acted through that are kind of playing out right before our eyes.
100%. And what's interesting is our show is about getting through that red tape and that bureaucracy of attempting to actually help the patient. And here in real life, as I've attempted to try to get some masks and some personal protective gear, aside from the ones from New Amsterdam, we got that easily, through to the hospitals. But I personally have been attempting to get some things done, and there's a lot of things in the way, steps and forms, and I'm just like, gosh, people are dying. Nurses are quitting because they don't have enough gear. And so I'm getting a taste of what our characters go through weekly. People don't think about how difficult it is to get something done in the medical world. When you have, as a patient, you go in and you struggle with whatever ailment you have in the first place. And then if your insurance won't cover something, or the doctors seem a little bit not human when it comes to relating to, it's because they're going through so much, and they hurt when they're trying to get things done and they can't. So I know what it's like now to have my hands tied in the medical business.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk specifically about the show. Now, I know there's a programming note. 9 p.m. is when people can tune in, right?
Absolutely. best time slot for tomorrow.
Yeah, and I guess let's just explain to viewers, because of the whole crisis. I mean, the TV production schedules have changed, so May is often the season finale time, but things have moved up because shows couldn't finish filming. So in case anybody's wondering why there's a shuffle and shows are suddenly ending, that's why. So what can we expect on the episode? It's called Matter of Seconds.
Well, yeah, we're calling this the final episode of the season, and we're not calling it the season finale because, as you mentioned, a lot of shows, including ours, we didn't get a chance to shoot what we had planned on shooting. And for precautionary reasons, obviously, we had to shut down production. But that being said, this episode is a very good episode where it's going to be another tearjerker. That's one thing you can rely on with New Amsterdam,
of course,
is that you're going to need a box of Kleenex every week. Max is attempting to help a kid. He meets a kid with a rare muscular disease, and he's desperately trying to get him into the only clinical trial in the country that could extend his life. And you have Sharp and Bloom scrambling to try to figure out these rare symptoms that patients are presenting with in the hospital. And we had a pandemic episode that we had to pull from the air for now, but that part of the story is sort of stemming from that episode, and we'll dive into that. And we have some great stuff with Iggy and Kapoor as well. So it's a good episode. I actually haven't seen it, and I'm excited to see it myself.
Well, it's also really, coincidental, ironic, whatever word you want to use. We've heard the term clinical trial so much in the news lately all of a sudden. And then also, patients that just have these similar symptoms, again, something that doctors, going back to the coronavirus thing, that have never been seen before. So there's some art imitating life, coincidentally, I imagine.
Yes, and it's so odd as you watch these movies, particularly the science fiction ones, and it's interesting because here we are living a real-life pandemic. I think that the pandemic shows and movies should be moved from the category of science fiction and moved straight into drama, because this is real, and it's here. But as we watch those shows and those movies, and even the series I was on before, The Last Ship, it was I spent 5 seasons filming about this pandemic that could hit the earth, and it's just so real now, hitting so close to home. And when it's real, you look at those shows now in a different light.
Let's talk about your character, Dr. Reynolds. Is this goodbye for good, right? I mean, he said goodbye to New Amsterdam. Do you have any spoilers? What can you tell us?
Well, I will say we were going to get an answer to that, and as we've been teasing the fans for, I think it will have been, it was projected to be about 7 episodes we were going to tease. And now the fans are going to have to wait, I think, a little bit longer to see what happens with that storyline. As you know, my character is engaged to Evie, and she's elected to take the job in San Francisco, and he's been offered a job in San Francisco. And where we left off in episode 17 of this season is that Dr. Reynolds leaves. But again, there was all sorts of possibilities that range from him leaving the show and you never see him again to maybe following some of his storyline in San Francisco, to him not leaving, and possibly a spinoff. Those questions and more will have been answered once we see these episodes that we haven't shot yet. So unfortunately, I have no answers for you, but you're going to have to stay tuned with us for the final episode of the season, and come back with us when we resume shooting.
And speaking of art imitating life, I know you're a California boy at heart. So again, this is all coincidental, isn't it?
Moving to California. Well, I'll tell you what, if Dr. Reynolds is moving to California, Jocko is staying in New York for a while, because this is a great city, and I love it here.
Sure is. All right, so we're going to be watching the season finale Tuesday, NBC. Check your local listings, but 9 p.m. is the new time slot for the final episode of Season 2. Jocko Sims, great chatting with you. Stay safe. I appreciate your time.
Same to you, Jeremy. Thank you very much. Take care.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. Has your alcohol consumption increased since you've been in lockdown? I was talking about alcohol a couple of weeks ago on the show. I think I'm just obsessed. What I think I'm obsessed with is there are not many places open in my neighborhood, but the liquor store is. And so I think that I'm going there just because I need to get out for a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a place where there's the grocery store, which they say, you don't go to if you don't have to. And I get that. I appreciate the rules that they're implementing. But I don't know. And so I feel stupid going in there and not buying something. So I end up coming home. Now, here's the thing, is that in our fridge, there are, I don't even know how many bottles of booze. I live with a big hulk of a fitness guy. So, our alcohol consumption, there's no sweets, there's no treats in our house. I mean, it's a very boring house if you're looking for junk food. But we now have probably a record number of booze bottles. And clearly we're not entertaining anybody because that's, we'll get thrown in jail if we do that. But it's interesting to see what's deemed an essential service. And I'm Canadian. I'm in Canada right now. But, throughout the U.S., the gun shops, the marijuana shops, they're all deemed an essential service. And I find that interesting. Just like a liquor store. I mean, I don't know. Why? And also, too, where I'm from in Manitoba, they want, greenhouses where I can go and buy my spring flowers. They want that to be considered an essential service. I appreciate everybody who's out of work right now and the businesses that have shut down. I'm certainly not making light of them. But again, if this is critical that you can't go out, you need to limit your interactions with other people, you know what? Sorry to all the plant lovers out there, but let the plants die then, or just, have a jungle in your greenhouse. It's not an essential service. And I'll get letters, I'm sure I will. But, essential services, your grocery store, your veterinary office, right? I mean, your dog or something can get sick, so absolutely, I can appreciate that as being an essential service. Naturally, drugstores, of course. But, liquor stores, marijuana, guns, what do you think is happening? I don't, I don't know. But I guess, I don't know, yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. I'm of a different mindset than most people. I have never tried marijuana in my life, so I can't say. I have had a drink, and I'm not being a hypocrite because I just told you about how I go to the liquor store and I buy things. But the reason being is because it's open and I'm, just looking to go somewhere to get out of the house for a bit. If it was closed, I'm fine with that. And so, I'm frequenting it because it's open. I went to the mall the other day because I had to go to the post office, which is across the street from the mall, and so I just decided to go in there because I was going to get a bite to eat or something, right? So just a quick, a wrap or something to bring home. And security was in there. There was, I think, one place open in the food court was a bakery, but almost every store was shut down. The dollar store was open, and I think I'm just going in my head. I'm going through them all. That dollar store and the bakery. There was one other thing I don't remember what it was, but. And again, I understand if you're selling things like, diapers and baby formula. Well, that's a grocery store, essentially, too. But, yeah, it's interesting. So are there any weird situations or scenarios of businesses that are open that you wouldn't consider an essential service. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. We're going to give you a quick Twitter reminder, and then I'll be back right after this on The Scribble.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up The Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
JB here, back on The Scribble. I've said it a few times on this show. I hate when people go and say, subscribe, and tell all your friends. But I'm being reminded to do that because, well, this is big, though. We're on a whole bunch of other new podcast platforms, so we're reaching new people every week. So if this is your first time listening and tuning in, I appreciate your time. If you like what you hear, subscribe. Don't worry, I make a ton of money, so I'm not asking for donations on this, okay? That I can assure you. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I will talk to you next time. Stay safe, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,